Hello and welcome to my sub £100 GPU War Thunder showdown. Included in this test was the Gigabyte HD 6870, clocked at 950 MHz on the core and 1205 on the memory. The VTX HD 6950, clocked at 900 MHz on the core and 1300 MHz on the memory. The MSI GTX 580, which was clocked at 955 on the core and 1050 on the memory. Next up, we've got the AMD Sapphire 7870, which was clocked at 1225 on the core and 1350 on the memory. And finally, we have the MSI 7970 Lightning at 1060 on the core and 1750 on the memory. So, in conclusion to this War Thunder showdown, I think that the GTX 580 is the best price to performance card. You can get one of these cards on eBay for around £50 to £60. It's the second fastest card in all of the tests that I did, and it stayed pretty cool as well. I also had a Gigabyte one of these as well as an MSI one, which also stayed under 80 degrees most of the time. If you have a lower wattage power supply, maybe go for the 7870. They tend to be a bit more expensive at around £70 to £80, but they do use quite a lot less power, put out a lot less heat, and this Sapphire Dual X one that I have here ran exceptionally cool as well, which was really good. So you could turn the fan speed right down on that, set up a custom fan curve, and it'd be really quiet as well, whereas the 580 is slightly louder. As for the 7970, I don't think it's worth the extra money to buy this card, especially if you're playing at 1080p. I mean, the other cards can manage 60 FPS average most of the time, really, so it's not really necessary. I think the 7970 would be a better option if you're playing at 1440p, or maybe like an ultra wide monitor, or if you want to play at a high refresh rate like 120Hz or 144Hz, then the 7970 would be worth the extra money. I would also consider a GT 680, which I currently don't have though, as this benchmark and game does tend to benefit more and use the architecture better on the Nvidia cards. As for the 6000 series cards, the 6950 and the 6870, they are usable if you're on a really tight budget of like £30 to £50. If you lower the settings a bit, because I had this maxed out at 1080p, if you lowered those settings down to maybe high, lower the AA down a bit, they could probably hit 60 FPS quite easily, but you wouldn't be getting the maximum value for money with those, I don't think, and with them being older cards, they are more likely to have issues and maybe not last as long. And also in the 6950s case, it ran quite a lot hotter than all the other cards. It managed to hit 80 degrees. I did have quite a bit of an overclock on that, but even so, I don't think the cooler on it was very good, so I wouldn't recommend a VTX 3D card at all. I'd probably go for something like a Sapphire if you can find one of those, or maybe a HIS. The test system that I used was a 2500K at 4.4 gigahertz with I think 8 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the motherboard's a Z77 OC formula from ASRock. Not that will make any difference to the actual gameplay. I will try to do another test of all these cards, as I have got a 6600K in a brand new Skylake CPU, but I can't promise that. But that should be coming in a future video, so I can do a comparison Z77 versus Z170. So we can see if that improves the performance in War Thunder. But I think that's about it for this video. I don't really have anything else to say, so have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.